In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a standard set of financials for a business. So that's going to include your income statement, also known as profit and loss, your balance sheet, and your cash flows. So whether you need this for a new business that you're starting or an existing business, or if you're trying to brush up on these skills for an interview or a class you're taking, this video should help you with all of that. Now, interestingly enough, I just actually started my own business, a second business, and this is exactly what I used for that. So while at CES, we've certainly done these for our clients, this is actually the way that I built it for myself for my new business. So I'm going to take you through step by step. You'll see it all come together. Okay, so we're going to start out with the cash flow projections. Now, that may not seem like the place that you would logically start, but I'm going to show you, or you'll see as it unfolds, why that is the case, why it's good actually to start with cash flow projections. Ideally, what you want when you're building a set of financials like this, you want it so that as you're tweaking the model, as changes are happening, you can make a change somewhere and not have to remember, oh, I need to go tweak this number over on the balance sheet. And now, okay, that's going to affect the income statement or vice versa. So we're going to build it in such a way that a change will flow throughout the sheet the way that it really should. So you're not having to keep track of all that and make changes across the sheet when you make tweaks to your financial model or these financial statements for your business. Okay, so the cash flow projections. The first thing we're going to do is get some dates in here. So I'm going to run this as for 2024. So we'll start in January 1st, 2024. And then I only want to enter one date. The rest I want to be formulas. And that way, if I wanted to update this to January 2025, I just change one date. Everything sort of populates automatically from there. So the way that we're going to do that is using the EO month formula. So equals EO month. And basically this just takes you to the end of the month. So if I type in a comma 0, so my start date is the January 1st, 2024. I'm progressing 0 months in advance. And when I close my parentheses, now it's going to tell me January 31st. I want to add 1 to that so that we get into the next month. So before I add that 1, it would give me January 31st. We add the 1, and now it's February 1st. Now I can take that formula and drag it all the way across and get all the way out to December. Okay, and then I'm actually going to want, for reasons that will become evident later on, I'm actually going to want another row here as well. You don't necessarily have to do this part, but I want to do an EO, equals EO month here as well. And this time I'm just going to do comma 0 because I'm really just looking for the end of the month date. And I'll copy that all the way over. And I'm going to copy this formatting and paste it down there as well. You can do your format painter or paste special format, paste formats. Okay, so now we have that. I'd like to maybe update the formatting on these. So we'll get to that at the end, actually. We'll do our formatting once we get things built out a little bit more. Now we have all of our dates. We're going to be doing cash flow projections by month at this point. So we're going to want to see beginning cash to start out. Then after that beginning cash, here's all the changes that happen, which represent our cash flow. So we'll have a cash received, and then under that cash received, this is going to end up being wider. Now we'll have our individual sort of categories. And rather than you watching me type all this out, I'm just going to paste it in from another sheet. Okay, so I have net store sales, online sales, affiliate income, and monthly recurring revenue programs, then a total sales revenue, which will sum all of those up. Okay, now that's our cash received. We're also going to want to have a cash spent or cash out. And again, I'm going to format paint that so that it's left aligned. Okay, so cash spent. And again, I'm going to copy all these in from another sheet just so that you don't have to watch me typing all of these in. I'll get rid of a few extra rows here. Okay, so the way that I have it, I like to have it organized by different sort of categories. So you have COGS or cost of goods sold. This is retail. So I have used inventory, new inventory sidelines, COGS, travel/fees. So the travel and fees to go out and purchase some of the goods that are being sold. Sales and marketing, startup cost, administrative. And these are all pretty typical things. So especially if you're doing some sort of retail business, you would have similar items, but even if your items are completely different, it doesn't matter. You just go in and type in whatever your items would be. Again, I like having these sort of centered cells that are going to show the categories for each one. And we'll make everything look nice with formatting adjustments in just a minute. Okay, so now we have our pretty much the skeleton or the framework built out. We could go in and start entering in actual values and all of this. At the bottom, we're going to want to have a cash flow or deficit as well so that we can track what's happening with our cash flow, what's the sort of end of the month state of affairs there. Okay, so ultimately, since these are projections, these are just going to be values entered in. So I'm going to actually just enter in zeros for right now. Of course, you could go in and enter that. The way that I'm doing this, if you're curious, I'm selecting the range that I want to apply this in, typing in 0, and then hold down Control and hit Enter, and then it's going to put that in every cell I have selected. So you can also skip ranges like this. So I'm holding down the Control key as I make these selections so that I can select these different ranges. Now I can do 0, hit Enter, and that way we have some numbers in there. Let's go ahead and format all of that as currency. You can use, if you're on the Home tab here, it's just that little $sign. And actually, I'll do currency instead of accounting. Okay, so now we have all that done. We need to change our formatting up here. So for this, I like to have it, since we're really just looking at this as months, I don't really want to see January 1st. So I'm going to do, I did Control 1. You can also go to Format Cells up here. So Format Cells. And we want to change that date format. I'm just going to do a custom. And in here, I'll do month, 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 space, year, year. Okay, so then that's going to show me that. I'll center those up, and you can use that little button right there. Okay, so now we've got that centered up. For now, I'm going to hide this row. We really don't need it again for what we're doing right now. That's more a future thing. Okay, so now we've got all of our months. You would be typing in, of course, your cash flow projections here. The total sales revenue, of course, this should be a sum formula summing up the items above it. So all of our sales there. I'm going to copy that, Control-C and Control-V to get it copied over there. Okay, so now we have our total revenue for each month. Same thing down here for total expenses. We're going to want to do a sum formula, and we just want to get all of this stuff. Okay, so we got all of our possible expenses summed up at the bottom, and then our cash flow deficit, of course, is just going to be the difference between those two. So I'm going to do our equal sign, then what's our total revenue for January currently, minus our total expenses, and that gives me the cash flow deficit value there. Okay, so now our beginning cash can actually get filled out as well. So we're going to initially type in a value here, maybe let's say 85,000. And I'm going to go ahead and format this as currency as well. Okay, so now there's our beginning cash. I want this to automatically populate, which would be our beginning cash plus whatever our January deficit or surplus is. That's going to get us our beginning cash for the next month, and we just copy that all the way across. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to want to make these a little bit wider. I do Alt-HOW. You can also go to Format Cells and change the width there. All right, let's make it maybe about a 10. Do 11. Okay, there we go. So now you can see this is looking pretty good. We've got everything inside of it that we need. Let's do some formatting to make it look a little bit nicer though. So maybe you want to do, if you're trying to print this out, remember not to use big bold colors for the backgrounds. In this case, I'm making a PDF. I'm not actually printing it, so I am going to use some darker colors, and also maybe keep in mind what your branding is. Change the font color to white, make it bold. Okay, and we'll kind of keep that format consistently throughout here. So for these main headings, I'm going to go ahead and turn those, that same dark blue background with white font, and make sure they're all bold. Okay, and then I also like the font to be a little bit larger on these. So with those selected, bump up that font a little bit. Okay, maybe not quite that much. Okay, very good. So now you can see this is, again, looking pretty decent. Still, I don't like, generally, just maybe my aesthetic, I don't like having the grid lines turned on in Excel for something like this. So I'm going to turn off those grid lines and then essentially add in my own. The way I'm going to do that in this case is by making the background cells for all of these numbers a light gray, then we'll do a white border. That gives you a pretty nice looking, rather than doing just the dark black borders, which I think kind of detract from the values in the cells. This way, the values really stand out, but it gives it a nice kind of format look. So we can use maybe this light gray right there, and we're going to put a border in it. So again, Control-1 to get to your cell formatting, border, and we'll do a white border. I'm going to click inside and outside, so now there should be borders everywhere. And there you go. Now you can see that's looking pretty good. All right, so now we're going to do the income statement or profit and loss statement. So we will add a new tab by hitting the plus sign there and rename it Income Statement. And for my business, I did a 5-year, and so we're going to have a year 1 through year 5. Okay, And we can make those columns a little bit wider. And I like to have the year underneath it, so the actual year. So I'm going to do it this way, +1. So add 1 to the previous cell, copy that over. And now we have our year 1 through 5 with the actual year that it falls in. Okay, so that's our headings. Now what we want to do is get our column over here, which is going to be very similar to what we did on the cash flow projections, but a little bit different. I'll kind of go through that, but you can do a good bit of copying and pasting from one to the other. So I'm going to paste this in here. Okay, so the sales revenue, again, is going to look really familiar or similar. I'm actually going to copy these right over there. Okay, so that's going to look familiar, but then instead of over here, we had cash received and cash spent. On an income statement, we're going to want to do sales revenue, then our cost of goods sold, and operating expenses. So it's broken out a little bit differently. So now we have cost of goods sold. We want to have a total cost of sales, and then a gross profit. So it's going to get us our gross profit. Then we'll move into operating expenses and have our total operating expenses and net profit located at the bottom here. Okay, so once you get all of those things filled in, and again, that's going to be whatever applies to your business in terms of the items that go into your cost of goods sold, if you want to itemize it, and whatever your operating expenses are. But once you have this column filled out, now what we want to do is go and have this automatically populated from the cash flow projections. And this is why it made sense that we started with the cash flow projections and then moved to the income statement. So to do that, I'm going to do equals, do a sum formula, so equals SUM, open parentheses, and go and grab the range over here on that other tab, close my parentheses and hit enter. I'm going to do that one more time. So equals sum. Now I'm on online sales. So literally all I'm doing, I'm not pushing any buttons, just clicking the other tab. If you're not familiar with linking from sheet to sheet, clicking the other tab. And then this right here is kind of in my way, just so you know this. You can, if you hover over it till your mouse turns into that weird crosshair, then you can left click and drag to get it out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to left click and drag to select this whole range for the online sales. Close my parentheses, hit enter, and thankfully I don't have to keep rewriting that formula. You just write it one time, and now I can copy it down. The only thing is when I go to copy it down for example, inventory purchases, that's going to be a little bit different because over here I had new and used inventory broken out as well as sidelines. So over here I'm going to write a custom sum formula, another one, and this time I'm going to select this whole range. It's going to include, now we're grouping the used, new, and sidelines all together. Close my parentheses, and there we go. I've got those inventory purchases. All right, now I can do the travel procurement, which is really going to be that same formula from earlier, so you could also copy it down, but it's just as easy for me to do it this way in this case. Okay, so we've got that. Now we're going to move down to the operating expenses. And I'll show you how this works. So I'm just going to copy this down, the travel procurement one I just did. I'm going to look at where it's headed. So it's going to C26 to N26. So it's looking on row 26 of this cash flow projections tab. So if I come over here to 26, you're going to see that's not the right place, right? That's startup costs. That should be advertising row 22. So now that I know that, I can change this to 22. And now I should be ready to sort of copy that down. One easy way to sort of spot check this, maybe a good idea, is I'm going to enter values in here, ascending order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. This is just temporary, of course. I'll be overwriting these. But that way I'll see when I copy this down if everything is copying over correctly or if I'm missing anything. It should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, and there you go. So you see something's wrong right here. Okay, this should be a 7, not 33,007. So I can see that it is grabbing the wrong thing there. So I'm going to go and write that formula equals sum to grab my lease. Oh, nope. Okay, that is correct. I'm sorry. Because we had these 3,300 things in there as well. Okay, for the lease from earlier. So good. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and so on. Okay, so all of that is looking good. I'm going to go ahead and add some formatting in here. So we will change this to currency, and I don't like to see the cents when we're looking at this sort of high level, so I'm going to take those out by clicking that button right there to decrease the decimal. Okay, and now over on my cash flow projections, I can also reset these to be back to 0 for now. Okay, so that's going to be our first year. Now, of course, we want to build out year 2, 3, 4, 5. That is going to be, it's not going to link to something. That's going to be something you enter, of course. So you're going to be projecting what your income statements, your sales and so on will be in the future. One way of doing that is a percent growth approach. So you may say, well, I think my net store sales are going to grow by 20%, year over year. So I'm going to do a 1.2 multiplier all the way across there. And so now every year it's growing 20%. That can be a kind of quick way to estimate that at least. Now let's go ahead and add in our sum formulas to get our totals for the total sales revenue. And we'll need that same formula for the total cost of sales. And then ultimately, our gross profit, of course, will be the difference between those. We're going to take our total cost of sales minus our total our total sales revenue minus our total cost of sales, and that's going to be our gross profit. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make these bold. Again, we'll do a little bit cleaning up on the formatting at the end as well. Okay, then our total expenses, just like we did on the other sheet, we need to go ahead and grab all of those and copy that over. Okay, so now we have our years 1 through 5 filled out, and again with your expenses, maybe for these you do a same thing, like a percentage increase like that. I'm doing 20% growth, or maybe it's some function of the for something especially like inventory purchases, it would be probably related to your sales. So I might do my maybe it's my sales times, depending on what your margin is, times 0.6. That's how I'm going to project out my inventory purchases. So there's some options for how you can kind of quickly get to some estimated numbers there. Okay, so now all of these obviously would be getting filled out, again, with those manually, those numbers, whatever you think your projections need to come out to. Our net profit is going to be our gross profit minus our operating expenses. And we can copy that across. All right, and again, we've already talked about how to change the formatting of cells, so I'm just going to now sort of paste in some formats that will make these look a little bit nicer. Same approach that we did on the other sheet with the light gray backgrounds and the white borders. And what I'm using to paste only the formatting is Alt-EST, which is the same thing as coming up here to the paste button and doing paste special and selecting the format only right there. Okay. All right, and I also like to freeze the panes at the top just so as I'm scrolling down, I don't lose my year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go to the View tab, Freeze Panes, and click that button. You can see where my cursor was right there, where it's going to freeze the top and left side of whatever cell I have selected. Okay, so now that is looking good, and again, will be automated. So as I'm working out my cash flow projections and saying how much I think I'm going to have in sales, that is all automatically going to populate over here. So we have our cash flow projection set up, our income statement is set up. Now we just need to do a balance sheet. Now in my case, it was a very simple balance sheet, and so that's what I'll be showing you how to set up now. But even for balance sheets that are more involved, for more complicated businesses, the basics are still the exact same. So this will still show you everything that you need to know. Basically, you're gonna have assets and liabilities typically. In my case, again, it's just a pretty straightforward set of items. I'm actually going to go ahead and just copy them over so you don't have to waste time watching me type all these in. And I'll change the width of that. Okay, so I have my assets, which are divided into current assets of cash, total current assets, which is just going to be the cash, non-current assets, total non-current, total assets, and then our liabilities. And I'll show you the formulas for those where those apply as well. First, I'm going to go ahead and get these put in here as well. Okay, and I'm going to delete all of that. Okay, so we have our beginning, year 1, and year 5. So in my case, a balance sheet, I'm looking at a snapshot of where we're starting, what our end of year 1 is going to look like, and what our end of year 5 is going to look like. So I want this end of to be spread over year 1 and year 5. So a trick on how to do that, rather than merging cells, which can actually cause problems in a spreadsheet, is to select across that range, go to your format cells, which again you can get to as using Control 1, go to alignment and do center across selection. So now you're going to see that center across there nicely without having to do a merged cell. Okay, so now we've got the formatting and everything built out. Let's go through how to get these formulas set up. So for the cash, for the beginning cash, we're just going to do an equal sign, and remember that we entered that value over here on our cash flow projections with our beginning cash right there from January 1st. So I'm going to select that, hit enter. Now I've got my beginning cash. Now, as I'm working through this model, if I figure out I actually need to have 110,000, then when I put that in there, the balance sheet's automatically going to update. And that's the beauty of building it out like this. Okay, so there's that for the beginning cash. Okay, so now for the end of year 1, that is just going to be whatever our beginning cash position was, plus off our income statement, our net change for year 1. So this net profit or loss from year 1. And that's going to get us our year 1 there. And then for year 5, it's just going to be that starting position plus the sum of changes from the income statement, years 1 through year 5. Okay, so there's our year 5 sort of ending cash position. Total current assets is just going to be the sum of everything above that, which in this case, we just have one line item, so pretty boring. All right, again, I'm going to change these to not have the sense. Okay, non-current assets, these are going to be potentially manually entered in if you are valuing those things that you purchased. Depending, you may actually be able to use a formula here. So you could say, for example, equipment and furnishings. If you want to say that it is the cost of those things, then I could come over here to my income statement, for example, for year 1 and look at all of the maybe interior decor and furnishings that I purchased. Maybe I want to multiply that by some factor, like only 80% or something. More than likely, you would just type these in manually as the value of those items. Maybe you have a separate depreciation schedule to let you know how those change over time. And then the same thing for inventory. For inventory in particular, it may be that the value of it is more clearly known based off its MSRP or retail value. Okay, so you may just we'll just say we're going to type those in manually in this case, which will be the case for most businesses. I'm going to hide these extra rows. Okay, so now we're going to have our total non-current assets, which will just be the sum of those two items there in my case. And then the total assets, of course, will be your current plus your non-current. And we can just copy that across. Okay, so now we want to look at the liabilities, which again, there aren't many in my case. I'm going to hide these extra rows. These would also be, this is also something that would just be entered in manually in both of those cases. And then total liability should just be the sum of those items. Okay, so now we have a balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow projections all built out. Perhaps at the top here, you may want to put the business name, what it is. This is cash flow projections and so on. That's why I leave a little bit of space at the top. And now you're pretty much ready to go. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you is how to get this ready to print. Right now, if I hit Control P, you're going to see that it breaks it up across 6 pages and it looks really terrible. So to fix that, I'm going to, within this same print preview window, go to the page setup, and I'm going to force it to print to 1 page wide by 1 page tall by clicking that Fit To, and also going to change it to be landscape orientation. And so now you can see it looks pretty good. We could also probably take some off of the margins. And now you'll see it get even a little bit bigger. Okay, so that looks pretty good now. So you can use that same sort of format or approach to the other tabs as well. So now you have a full set of business financials that is dynamic, where as you are working out your cash flow projections and adjusting the model, it will flow throughout the rest of the sheet and update your income statement and balance sheet accordingly for you automatically. One thing I'll say is this is getting it set up as a sort of static set of financials that you would do if you were, again, maybe putting together a business plan, starting a business. But if you need to actually use this for your business operation and you don't want to just know your cash flow projections, but you want to be able to track actual cash flow and have a real income statement reflecting how you're doing year to year, I'm going to make a separate video where I walk you through how to take this as a starting point and turn it into a sheet that you can operate your business on for years to come. So check out the link in the description. I'll probably also pin it in a comment for that next video, which will be in the same playlist. You can see how to transform these into a set of sheets, or a sheet rather, that you can use to operate your business from financially. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.